Welcome in. If you're joining my live, then you are here to discuss holiday etiquette made easy. The holiday season is upon us, and oftentimes we are caught in very awkward situations with family, new friends, being invited to lots of different social events. So, this is the perfect time to brush up on your etiquette. So, if you're just now joining us, you can wave or drop a question of a common concern or issue that you experienced during the holidays, and I'll see if I can answer. So, welcome. I believe your name is Grace. Thank you for joining us. One of the best holiday tips to remember is to speak with kindness. A lot of times we're around family that we haven't seen all year round, and they tend to rub us the wrong way. But from a biblical perspective, we are supposed to be responding respectfully, not yelling, not using profanity, but knowing that there is power in the tongue, and that when you are speaking, you want to speak in a way that's not going to bring anger, that's not going to bring drama, that's not going to bring problems. And this is a perfect time for you to learn how to actually respond to different people you'll be around for the holidays so that you're not in any unnecessary issues, arguments, drama, the things that we hate, but that tend to be exactly what we experience during the holidays. I also am live on YouTube, so I'm live on TikTok and I'm live on YouTube. So I will be going back and forth with my focus, but we are discussing holiday etiquette made easy because this is the time of year where we're around everyone that we love, but people we love tend to get on our nerves. So, if you want to have the best approach to all of the different issues that you're experiencing during the holiday season, definitely keep watching because I will get into them. And when you join, just comment in the chat where you're joining from so that I can know where you're viewing from. I'm on the East Coast, so I'm in New York. Where is everyone tuning in from? Oh, thank you all for the gifts. I don't even know how that works, but thank you. Hi, everyone joining. I know everyone doesn't have a name on their profile, but thank you for joining and liking the live. Okay, so I'll just get right into it because I do have some viewers. Thank you for joining. So, the first etiquette tip that you can follow when going to family members' houses, maybe you're meeting the parents of your significant other, maybe you're just being invited to a lot of different work related events, holiday parties. Something that we would think is helpful but is actually not is if you're being invited to somebody's house, you actually want to be 10 to 15 minutes after the start time on the invite instead of being early, unless it's your mom and dad's house. But if it's not your parents' house or direct relatives' house, you want to be a little bit behind time because you actually are walking into them setting up, to them hosting. So if you come early, then they have to rush their process. And sometimes when people are preparing their houses for guests, they're waiting until the last second to get ready because there's so much to take into consideration when you're hosting people, not just for a few hours, but likely for a whole weekend. So you want to actually arrive 10 to 15 minutes after the invite time. And when you do arrive, depending on who it is, but for most, you want to still come with some sort of a gift. Maybe you cooked something, maybe you have a bottle of wine or champagne, Maybe you're surprising your parents because you're pregnant. Whatever it is, you still want to come to them with a gift. Hi, Jen. Thank you for logging in and thank you for viewing. I have some folks on YouTube, so I want to give my YouTube folks a shout out as well. But yes, when you're joining someone for an event for the holidays at their house, you want to come a few minutes behind and you actually want to come with a gift of some sort. You don't want to come empty handed. Another thing that we want to be really mindful of when we're visiting people for the holidays is dun, 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 dun. If you're going to someone's house for the first time, as soon as you walk in, stop at the door and observe where they have their shoes and ask the host, would you like me to take my shoes off? Some people really don't care, but some people actually have a whole system set up. Some people will have socks for you or shoe covers for you because they actually don't want you trailing in snow, dirt, mud, or whatever fall foliage is going on outside. So when you do first step into someone's house, you want to ask them where you can put your shoes or if you're still allowed to have your shoes on. I know we like to for Thanksgiving be in the living room in our fit. The shoes are part of the outfit, but you don't always want to just keep your shoes on if someone's telling you that they actually would like for you to take them off. Another very helpful tip, this is for the ladies predominantly, is when you're sitting down on the couch, you especially might be maybe a bit nervous if you're going to a family member that you haven't yet met before, or if you're meeting new people around the holidays. Some people are going to their family's houses, maybe they're meeting new people because they're meeting their significant other's family. When you sit down, it's very tempting, especially if you see a lazy boy or something so soft and cozy, to just plop down. I'm not allowing co-hosts right now. I know somebody's requesting, but not right now. But thank you so much for offering. So a lot of people will tend to just plop down on the couch, but the best way to do so is to actually sit at an angle. You're going to lower your body gently, press back using the seat cushion, and then slide back so that you're able to be seated upright. That's actually the most proper way to sit, and you'll avoid a lot of accidents, a lot of blunders and mishaps if you just take your time to sit instead of plopping down or squeezing in between people. A lot of times people are all huddled up on the couch. Just give yourself time and give yourself the patience to be graceful so that you're not making any mistakes or making any decisions that come off as clumsy or disrespectful. We do have the well, now we have a few people on YouTube, so thank you for joining there, and thank you all for the gifts. I see you all joining in. When you join in, you can just comment if you're new where you're joining in from, what state, what country. I like to know where everyone's joining from. I'm on the East Coast in New York, and we are going over holiday etiquette tips so that when you are going into these different spaces, whether it's a holiday party, whether you're going home for the holidays or visiting someplace new, so that you can be prepared and confident. All of etiquette is not about perfection. It's really just about being polite and making progress from where you used to be. Some of us grew up with etiquette, some of us have never seen it, but it's just very easy to have a few etiquette tips in the back of your pocket so that you feel confident going into new environments and even familiar environments. Around the holidays, we can get very tempted to throw away everything that we've been working on all year, whether that was the waistline, the body goals, the fitness, or just all the decorum and leveling up you've been doing throughout the years. or throughout the year because you're around your family, and a lot of the times our families can trigger us because they know us in a different way, so it might be hard for them to see us quote unquote being bougie or thinking that we're better than them, but really worried, we're just concerned more about how we're perceived, so we'd like to work on our etiquette. Etiquette is not about being elitist or snobby or just trying to get something from someone. It's about respecting yourself and being mindful and respectful of other people as well. One of the verses that I think of is Proverbs 31, of course. Verse 25 is that she is with strength and honor, she is clothed, and she will rejoice in time to come. I think this goes very well with etiquette because you have all of these different qualities that you're working on, your strength and your dignity. And even when your etiquette is not well received, or even when someone's not being very kind to you, as long as you remain in that place of respect for yourself and others and politeness, then in time to come, you'll be able to celebrate. You'll be able to see the fruits of your labor because you stuck to your morals and your values and you remained dignified. You don't have to be in any place or in any situation where your dignity is lacking because you chose the high road, so to speak. So thank you all for joining. I see someone else joined. Thank you and welcome, Kate. Greetings, God's child. Thank you for joining. If you all have any questions of what issues you might run into from the holiday season, like maybe you are meeting someone for the first time and you don't know exactly what to do, drop any questions you have in the chat on YouTube and on TikTok. Any questions you have about etiquette during the holiday season, for holiday parties, dealing with family and friends, and being introduced to new people, drop those questions in the chat. I know one that is a really big one is remembering names. When you are in this time of year, we're meeting a lot of different people for various reasons, whether it's for business or for pleasure. So you want to have a trick to remembering names. I will admit sometimes, depending on how frequently I see a person, I will make sure that I do everything but ask them sometimes to find out their name because I know how much it means to them that they took the time to remember mine. But any other time, it's very okay to ask someone to remind me of your name again. Remind me of your name again. It's simple. You just met them. There's no real expectation. Or a trick to remembering their name is to immediately associate their name with some type of memory or some type of situation. So if I use Jennifer, for instance, someone might associate her name with the actress Jennifer Aniston from Friends, and then that's easy to remember. You remember that because Friends is one of your favorite pastime show pastime shows. The other way is to repeat their name throughout the conversation. So if I'm saying, "Oh, Jennifer, you live here. I know someone who lives there too." Okay, Jennifer, where is your family from? Oh, Jennifer, I really like your blouse. Just constantly finding a way to keep using that person's name in the sentence will help you remember it because you've said it so many times. It's harder to forget a name that you've said and repeated so many times, but it's easier to forget it if just shaking their hand they said, "Oh yes, my name is Jennifer," and then after that you met so many different people and you're looking at their face and you know you already met them, but you can't really put your finger on what their name is because you haven't repeated it enough times. So you have to actually make their name like a staple. So repeating it, finding ways to insert it into the conversation will help you to remember their name. And of course, when you are meeting someone, a handshake is usually important. But again, you have to actually, if you're being invited to someone's home and you know that they have a different culture or they potentially have a different culture than American culture, then you want to actually ask whoever is inviting you if there is any particular food, custom, or form of greeting that you should be mindful of, so that some people they bow, some people curtsy, some people just shake hands, some people hug. Maybe it's the culture of that family, which isn't necessarily etiquette, but it's something that you want to be mindful of. So, again, you want to ask the person who invited you if there's anything that you should be mindful of. And if not, you can just shake your hand. Usually, people shake with their right, but you can shake with your dominant hand. But most people are righty. So, when you shake with your right, it connects with their right hand. So, it's just easier. You shake with your right hand. You want to give a firm and even paced handshake about one, two, three times, and then you can let go. And you also want to greet people saying Miss or Mr. It's nice to meet you. And then if they correct you and say, actually, you can just call me Jennifer or Samara or Lily or Dan, then you can proceed to call them by their first name. But it is best practice to call them Mr. or Miss. Okay, I want to get into more about speech because there's proper etiquette around how you speak, but we want to be mindful that we're not being fake. And also, when you're practicing etiquette, most of these rules go to just everyday interactions. But if you're in the pulpit, or if you're in some sort of ministry, or if you're a preacher or a teacher or a bishop, you're going to follow a different set of protocols. Here's why. In everyday interactions, we are really not supposed to be just yelling at people, shouting at people. But if you're a pastor and you're preaching, it might be a bit more appropriate to really project your voice, get everyone's emotions up, and really invite the Holy Spirit. Or if you're giving a prophetic warning, you're likely screaming or shouting or really getting that message across in a way that in everyday interactions you don't need to. Or if you're warning someone, so say you're around small children and you're telling them to get out of the street, or you're telling them not to touch a hot stove, you're going to have to yell a bit more than usual, because you need to let them know that this is serious and they can't do that, so that they're being protected and warned against danger. But in most other interactions, we don't need to be yelling at people. Yelling at them, shouting at them. Most of us know the difference between someone who is speaking to us, someone who is speaking with power and authority, and they're really dictating their voice and they're really sending their voice out, versus someone who's just screaming and shouting and being disrespectful, especially through text messages with all caps messages. We also don't want to virtually speak to people for the most part in caps, because it does denote that you are yelling at them, and most, not most people, nobody likes to be yelled at. Another really big point that I made earlier was that we don't want to use profanity. We also don't want to provoke people to anger, insulting them, tit for tat, calling them out of their names, and really just being disrespectful. I think, especially as women, we know so well how to twist people with our words, and we know how to get to, like, really get underneath somebody's skin. And the Bible tells us all throughout Proverbs 18 and 21 tells us that life and death are in the power of the tongue. Proverbs 15 and 21 tells us that a soft answer turneth away wrath. And Proverbs 15 and 2 tells us that the tongue of the wise uses knowledge, but the mouth of fools poureth out foolishness. So if you think of someone who is wise, they're usually speaking to you kindly. But someone who's foolish is likely the person who's always trying to get at you, get underneath your skin, argue with you, make fun of you, just really make you uncomfortable because they're making you the butt of the joke. But a wise person is mindful of the fact that people have emotions and that everyone really wants to be respected, accepted, and treated pleasantly. So they're being mindful of what they're saying so that other people aren't made to feel uncomfortable and just so that they're having a good time. Because once you start getting weird with people, then they start getting uncomfortable, and then things usually go downhill from there. So, again, we are talking about holiday etiquette made easy, simple etiquette 101 that you can take with you into holiday interactions, whether that's with your family, your friends, or new people that you're meeting for the first time in business settings, or if you're visiting someone's house for the first time. These are situations that tend to make or break people. And I know that we should be given grace and people shouldn't be able to judge us, but they do. And some people, they've gotten invited to someone's house for the first time to maybe meet their significant other's parents. And based on how they behaved, that was the first and last time that they ever got invited because they didn't know these proper etiquette tips. But not you. You're not going to make those same mistakes because you've watched this live. And if you're even smarter, you started to follow me, and I'm going to help you because I've made my share of mistakes and I've heard stories, and together we can fix these common etiquette faux pas. So, another very important tip to be mindful of during the holiday season when it comes to etiquette is don't eat things that are way too messy, way too hard to manage. If you're used to eating spaghettis and pastas and things at home that are very messy, you want to avoid those things when you go to meet someone for the first time. Here's why. Not everyone is just understanding and down to earth and gonna really just smile and giggle because you're slopping down some spaghetti for the first time and you haven't eaten all day and you're just so hungry. Some people are just going to get annoyed by that, disturbed by that, because not only are you eating a very messy item, but you're also hungry. You came with a big appetite and you're hungry and you just are making a mess because when we're hungry, things just happen. So, if you're going to a business meeting or meeting someone at their house for the first time, you want to pick a safe option, something that you know how to easily eat, and something that's not going to cause you to be all over the place needing a lot of napkins. You also don't want to come starving. Come with a little sustenance to you. Eat a little something before you come to someone's house or before you go to a business meal, because if we're thinking of a business meal, the real objective is not to be fed. The real objective is for you to connect, network, maybe close a deal, and to establish or nurture an existing relationship. When you're meeting someone for the first time, maybe again you're meeting your significant other's family for the first time, the whole purpose isn't really the meal. It is you meeting those parents and connecting with them and letting them see who you are so that they can be sure that you're the right person for their son or daughter. And depending if it's like an Italian household or a household that is really priding themselves on these large meals that they want everyone to eat, then yes, continue to eat, match the culture of the home that you're visiting. But that's something that you again ask beforehand so that you know what you're walking into and that you're not completely blindsided if you didn't come with an appetite and you don't really, Not that you shouldn't really touch your food, you should eat, but in most instances, you're not overindulging because, again, they don't want to see the top of your head when you're just eating. They actually want to meet you and get to know you. Another really big etiquette tip is if you speak a language that's foreign to most of the people at the dinner table, you don't want to start speaking that language at the dinner table because most likely they're going to assume that you're talking about them. And again, etiquette is not about perfection, but it's about being polite to others. So you don't really want to do anything that's going to make someone else feel excluded or cut off from the conversation. Instead, you want everyone to feel included because that's the whole point of gathering at a table. You want everyone wants to connect, everyone wants to speak. Even that one uncle or cousin that people don't really like or speak to, when you're here for the holidays, for the most part, people are in a holly and jolly good mood. So they want to connect. They want to make the small talk. They want to smile and laugh and act like they like you. And it's okay. This is the time of the year where you're seeing a lot of people that you probably won't see at any other point in the year, but you still want to be pleasant, you still want to be polite, and you want to most of all be inclusive. I know most of the people that are tuned in because of the page that I have are people of faith. When we are around the holiday times, you can evangelize, you can save people and not save people, but you can evangelize and you can share the word of God. But if you know that there's certain people that only ask you about God because they want to get you riled up because they know they're going to keep debating you and saying the most wickedest things, then that topic is actually one that you want to stay away from around those people in particular that you know are not asking you because they want to learn and because they want to give their life to Christ. They're asking you to kind of just pull you in deeper so that you can just keep talking and exasperating yourself and not actually getting to any good point. You're just wasting your time. So there is a reason why in etiquette they tell you to stay away from religion and politics. But of course, if the Holy Spirit tells you to share that word, then you share the word. You don't have to be scared of anyone. And yes, for the most part, etiquette is what we follow. But when it comes to God, we listen to what God is telling us to do, not what any book or any set of rules is telling us. So if anyone on YouTube or oh no, what is not Instagram? If anyone on TikTok or YouTube have any questions about common etiquette, faux pas, or even anything, like if there's something that you have a question about because you're going home for the holidays or maybe you're having people over and you want to know what the proper etiquette is, you can drop your question in the chat. Or if you just want to say hi and let me know where you're watching from, then feel free to do that too. I'm happy to know where everyone's tuning from. And of course, I thank you all so much for joining me for this live. I think we have a Charles who just joined, so welcome in, Charles. We had a lot of different people join in at different times. We had Rogue, Gerby, Alex, Colin, Audrey, Dre. Thank you so much for joining in. Charles, if you have a location that you're watching from, feel free to drop it in the chat. And if you have any questions about the proper etiquette for the holidays, please feel free to drop it in the chat and ask your question. If anyone on YouTube has any questions about common etiquette around the holidays, feel free to ask as well. Thank you for hanging in there. Ooh, this is a good one. Another common etiquette tip that's not usually known is when you are seated at a table and someone who is standing walks in and they extend their hand to give you a handshake to greet you, you actually want to stand up and extend your hand back and shake their hand. You don't want to stay seated while they are trying to greet you. If they're standing, you stand as well. That's the proper way to do it because it is a more of a sign of respect that you stopped what you're doing to greet that person as opposed to just continue eating and just wave a bit and or just staying seated and reaching over to shake their hand, but you're actually stopping and standing up to greet them. I know some of you all will be setting the table for your meals. We tend to eat with the three-course dining setup, but when you have more than 5 courses, it actually is a different means of how you eat. For when you have a 3-course setup, you're eating from the outside in, so that way, after you finish each of the first courses and appetizers, by the time you get to the entree, those other utensils can just be taken away and you're making your way closer into the plate. But when you actually have a 5-course meal, or a meal with a fish or a soup, you're actually eating from the inside out your utensils. You're getting the using those inside utensils first and then you're making your way out. It's a bit more intricate with the more courses that you have, but standard American style or Western style is to eat with 3 courses and you're making your way from the outside in. So you would use your salad forks, then your salad forks, and then your dinner and entree fork. You're making your way in. If you want to know how to set the table, you make 2 B's with your hands, and I'm mirrored, but your left hand is making an actual B, and your right hand is making a D. So wherever the D is where the bread goes, and wherever the B is where the bread goes, and wherever the D is where the drink goes. So that's one tip that you can always think of when you're setting up the table and learning where do I put the bread plate versus where do I put the drinks and the wines. Thank you for joining us. Welcome in. If you're just joining, please drop where you're joining from. And you can also let me know if you have any questions about etiquette. It doesn't have to be around the holidays. Etiquette is pretty general at times, so you can ask any etiquette questions that you have. And thank you all so much for joining on YouTube and on TikTok. It's been a great live so far. We are discussing holiday etiquette tips made easy. And this is just how we are going. We're going through the different dining etiquette tips, speaking, greeting, remembering names, how to greet someone if you're at a table seated and they're standing and they walk up to you, as well as some tips for how to shake hands, sit, remember names, all the good stuff. We did go over a few scriptures, mainly about the power of your tongue and having an answer that is soft and positive so that you're not stirring up anger, arguments, and drama. Because, of course, during the holiday seasons is time that we are around a lot of family that we haven't seen in so long, and we likely can be easily triggered by them. So we want to be mindful of all of these very important things so that we know how to conduct ourselves. Thank you, Sheila. I don't know if I'm saying your name right. Jayla or Sheila for joining. If you have any questions about etiquette, especially during the holidays, or any basic etiquette questions like how do I greet myself? How do I sit? Where does my purse go at dinner? feel free to ask those questions and to say, hey girl, and even just to say, hey, and let me know where you're from. I'm so happy that you're joining me. And thank you all for liking the live. If you're enjoying it, share it out. We're going over holiday etiquette tips made easy. So we went over several things just to recap them when you're being invited someplace for the holidays, predominantly at someone else's house. You, instead of being on time or early, want to come 10 to 15 minutes after the scheduled time. That gives the host a little bit more of a wiggle room to continue to prepare their home for guests. Because if we are thinking about the holidays, they're not just hosting you all for that one night, they're likely hosting you all for that weekend or even that week. So the first meal, Thanksgiving, or whatever meal it is that kicks off that week that you actually have an invite for, you want to arrive slightly after the time that was posted on the invite. And when you get to the door, you want to make sure that you have brought a gift, whether that's a dish, a bottle of wine, whatever it is. You want to make sure that you don't go empty handed when you get to the door. These are just very simple things you might already know. Ask them if they'd like for you to take your shoes off. If they do, they might have socks for you, they might have shoe covers, or they just might have a place for you to put your shoes. You're likely hanging up your jacket, even if it's a bit drafty in the house, or maybe they opened the windows while they were cleaning and cooking. You don't really want to keep your outside coat on. You want to take it off, hang it up, let the host do that for you, and then you want to get comfortable and socialize. Something that we tend to do during the holidays is meet a lot of people, but we also tend to forget their names. So, one of the best tips for remembering someone's name is to constantly repeat it, constantly put it back into the sentences. So, I hope I'm saying your name right. Is it Shayla? Did I say that right? Okay, it's either Sheila, Shayla, or Chayla. So if I'm being introduced to you or you're telling me your name, I want to constantly repeat your name because I actually know somebody who has that name from my church. So if I was being introduced to you, I can just say, "Oh, one of my good homegirls from church, that's her name, Sheila." That's her name, Sheila. I can ask you, Sheila, are you from here? Do you live nearby? I can ask you if you have a favorite holiday. I can ask you any question. I can give you a compliment on your shirt, but I want to continuously say your name so that way I'm remembering it. Because when we think about the names that we forgot, it's because we shook that person's hand, or maybe we hugged that person and we only got their name once. We heard it, but we never repeated it. We never associated it with someone else that we knew. We never inserted it into the sentence to kind of let it continuously play in our head as we said it. So then they go around the room, we meet other people, and we forgot their names because we didn't continuously repeat it. So repetition is a really good way for you to actually remember that person's name. And if you can, associate them with whoever you know that has a similar name. My name is Samara. Maybe you know somebody that's Tamara, or anyone that has a similar name. Maybe you know a Samantha or a Sam. Just constantly connecting the person that you're meeting's name with someone that you know is going to help you to remember their name, because you're going to say, oh, what was that person's name again? Oh, Samara, because you associated it with something that was familiar to you. So that's a good thing to know. And then if you do forget their name because you just met them, it's okay. You can just ask them, may you repeat your name? That's it. I'm sorry, repeat your name for me again? Yes, okay. So nice to meet you. Or at the end of the little conversation, the back and forth that you're having, shake their hand, give them a hug, and just say, it was so nice to meet you, Shayla. It was so nice to meet you. I hope that I'm saying your name correctly. Welcome in. Anyone else that's joining, welcome in, and definitely drop your name in the chat or drop where you're viewing from in the chat, actually. Some other tips that we went over are when you're greeting someone and meeting someone, for the most part, you're shaking their hand unless otherwise discussed. So if you're going to someone's house for the first time, the person who invited you is likely going to give you the 411. They're going to give you the the background on who you're going to meet and what their culture is. So if they have some different culture other than shaking hands, then you want to follow that culture. So if maybe they're huggers, if it could just be they're more friendly, you want to hug. If they kiss, you want to hug. If they just do one kiss, you want to give them a kiss. So oh, thank you. I'm so glad I said it correctly. So you want to continuously be mindful of the culture and the environment that you're entering into and follow those rules and those protocols. So if it is a standard, maybe Western cultured household, you shake their hand with your right hand about 3 times and a firm shake, and then you can take your hand back. And you want to usually say, "Nice to meet you, Mr. John. Nice to meet you, Miss Deja." So you want to say Mr. or Miss, and then if they say, "Oh no, it's fine, you can just call me Deja or you can just call me John," then you proceed to call them by their first name only. We did also go over speech. Yes, I know everyone's culture is different. So in some cultures, you're going to be a bit louder, a bit more boisterous, a bit more extroverted. And in many other cultures, the culture is to not yell. So unless you know you're going to your mom's house, your cousin's house, someone that you know is more extroverted and everyone's yelling and everyone's kind of just having a good time, then it's not going to be out of the norm for you to be louder and to yell. But in most other social settings, you don't yell, you don't shout, and you don't scream. Of course, you don't type in all caps because usually people will assume that you're yelling. And unless you're on the pulpit or you're giving a sermon or you're prophetic or you're giving some sort of ministration, then you're not usually shouting and yelling and getting your message across that way. But instead, you can make sure you're enunciating and pronouncing all of your words. You want to have your power and authority. Where if you're a child of God, you speak with power and authority because God didn't give you a spirit of fear, but of power, love, and a sound mind. So you're really projecting, you're speaking sternly and firmly, but you're not shouting or yelling. And then, as ladies, the etiquette is not to speak in profanities, no curse words. You don't want to sound like a sailor and look so cute like a lady. When people hear you speak, you don't really want to sound like a surprise. If you look beautiful, you got your nails done, your hair done, you put on your makeup, you put on a really cute fit, you don't want to then sound like who did where did that come from? You want to sound how you look. So if you look soft, doesn't mean you have to speak like a little angel and sound like Marilyn Monroe. You don't have to whisper, you don't have to speak like that if that's not your natural voice, but you do want to speak in a way that is respectful and in a way that doesn't only respect others but shows that you have respect for yourself. I was studying the languages of pain one time. And sarcasm is a language of pain. So is profanity. It's a language of pain. You're unaware and you're unsure of how else to express yourself. So instead of fully explaining yourself in details with different words, it's like a curse word comes out and it kind of stops whatever you were trying to explain because you just kind of get frustrated and you just say that thing as opposed to sitting down and really asking yourself, how do I feel in this moment? what is going on right now? How is this person making me feel? And how have I internalized that? And then speaking through everything that you have to say. So these are just some different sets of holiday etiquette. If there's anything else that you wanted to ask me about, ask in the comments. Anything that's come up for you during the holidays, like how do I do this? What do I say if someone asks me this? How do I eat this type of dish? How do I set my table? If you have any etiquette questions, feel free to drop them down in the chat. Hi, Carmen. Thank you for joining us on YouTube. And hi, Stephanie. Thank you for joining us on TikTok. So happy to have you. Definitely feel free. If you have any types of etiquette questions, ask them here in the chat so that I can answer them. But I can think of a few that are the common ones. But yes, on YouTube, you too can ask me any questions that you all may have about common etiquette practices, whether it's how to sit like a lady, how to walk like a lady, some new vocabulary words to use, anything about how to dress for certain events. Definitely feel free to ask me. I see someone is here, but I don't know who that is. But thank you so much for those of you who are joining on TikTok. Thank you so much for tuning in and for sticking it out with me. If no one has any questions, I think I am going to wrap soon. So before we wrap, if anyone has any questions about etiquette, how to eat something, how to walk in heels, or how to sit down, anything like that, I know just for common practices, if we are sitting down, especially if we're wearing a skirt and we're sitting down on one of those couches, because during the holidays, most people are pulling out their couches for people so that they can host them. But you want to sit with your knees together and you want to sit at an angle and you want to sit down gently and then push yourself back so that you're at the back of the chair is then touching you. But you don't want to just plop down, even if you're sitting on a couch. You don't want to try to squeeze into a tight space. If you have to, you can pull up a chair to where everybody else is sitting, or you want to squeeze your knees, sit down towards the edge and slide back and sit at an angle. And from there, you've done it the right way and you're likely comfortable and you're not doing too much. But thank you all so much for joining. And thank you all for sitting through and listening to different etiquette tips to follow during the holiday season. We went over arrival time, we went over how to sit, we went over how to be greeted and how to greet, how to remember names, we went over how to speak, we went over some dining etiquette 101. So I do hope that you all gain some wisdom and some knowledge as well as some confidence to go into the holiday season with these newfound tips. We will be going live. I'll likely go live again tomorrow. And if you want to join me again, it might be a little bit earlier than 8 o'clock tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, that is, because I'm on the East Coast. So thank you all again for joining me. Bye on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining me, and bye on TikTok. Have a good night.